Your first audience with Her Majesty the Queen is really a pretty nerve-wracking experience because the equerry tells you all sorts of things that you've got to do, where to shake hands, how to shake hands, what to say, how to address Her Majesty, and you're kind of worried you're gonna stuff it up. But after a few moments, it becomes incredibly informal, and she's brilliant at asking questions that elicit a great torrent of stuff, and there's a lot of laughter. There certainly was with the audiences that I had. Sadly and rightly, I can't tell you what she said or what we said, but there was a lot of laughter.
Well, of course, this was taken at my first audience because my first audience was the one when I went to the palace and the Queen invited me to form a government. And at that moment when you walk through the door and you have that first audience, it becomes real that you are Prime Minister, you're taking on this privileged position, but also this responsibility. But Her Majesty was so good at putting everybody at their ease. And both that audience and the audiences I then went on to have with her subsequently, they were conversations. She was incredibly well informed, had immense experience, knowledge and wisdom. And it's a moment in the week when you're away from the hurly-burly of politics and you can actually sit down with somebody with experience and wisdom, knowledge and understanding and have that conversation about the issues of the day.
Well, my first audience was pretty extraordinary because, of course, we had a hung parliament. The Conservatives were much the biggest party after a great election victory in 2010. But when I went to see Her Majesty, I had to ask, I'd like to form a government, but I can't tell you exactly what sort of government it's going to be because Gordon Brown had left Downing Street and the coalition hadn't quite been put in place. So I think although she had seen Prime Ministers come and Prime Ministers go, I think this was probably the first time someone had said, I can't tell you exactly what the government's going to look like, but I will form one.
Well, the first audience was surprisingly relaxed. I expected it might be a little distant, a little difficult, but it wasn't. I was greeted at the door, I was introduced to the Queen, we sat down in 2 chairs. There was absolutely no one else present except a large ring of corgis, most of whom were well behaved, but not invariably on every occasion. And that was it. There was no private secretary, no notes. And it was just a conversation. Nothing was barred, nothing was out of court. Everything was discussed, and if the Queen wished to raise subjects, she did. If she wished to respond to what I was telling her, she certainly did. And I found it both very cathartic, very interesting, and something, frankly, that one looked forward to each week.
It was an extraordinary treat to be able to go to Balmoral every year for 6 years. And one of the best parts was when, in the evening, you'd get into Her Majesty's car, a Range Rover, and she would drive at breakneck speed up the hill and onto the moor, and there at a sort of converted bothy, an old cottage on the hill, would be the Duke of Edinburgh with a barbecue he'd built himself, barbecuing grouse for your dinner. And I'm not making this up, you sat down and Prince Philip and Her Majesty the Queen served your dinner and cleared it away and washed it up while you sat talking with the other guests. And I remember I think it was sort of year 5, I thought, well, I now surely can help, and got up and put on the marigolds and started doing the washing up. And I remember Her Majesty saying, what on earth is the Prime Minister doing? I'd broken with the protocol and rapidly sat back down and did what I was told.
I think there has been no other monarch in our history who has seen such a phenomenal increase in the prosperity, in the opportunity, in the longevity of the British people as she has in her reign. And for that reason alone, I think that she should be recorded as Elizabeth the Great.